Hey there, my name is Marley. Welcome to my channel, and today we're going to be doing my October reading wrap-up. So I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of October, and you know, of course, it was mainly horror and thriller books. So let's go through my stats first as a little overview of everything that I read. So I read 9 books this month. That was about 3,115 pages. Hours listened was 9. My average rating was 3.6, pretty typical. Books acquired 0. So that's rare. In terms of the genres that I read, as I was saying, I did read 4 horror books, 3 thriller books, 1 mystery, and 1 fantasy. In terms of the formats that I read 5 ebooks, 3 physical books, and 1 audiobook. And in terms of the audience of the books that I read, 8 of them were adult and 1 was YA. Makes sense reading so many horror books that they would mainly be adult. Kind of a weird stat for me is the gender of the authors that I read. Normally I read from fully female authors or like maybe 1 male. This month I actually read from 5 male authors and only 4 female authors. I think that's because I read books from my boyfriend's shelf and he does have a lot of male authors. In terms of author status, I read from 6 authors I had already read from before and only 3 new to me authors. In terms of years published of the books I read, overwhelmingly 4 books were new releases from 2025, and then we just had 1 from 2023, 1 from 2022, 1 from 2020, 1 from 2016, and then 1 from 2014. All right, now let's get into the individual book reviews, and as always, I will talk about the books from my lowest rated up to my highest rated. Spoiler alert, I did get a 5-star read again this month, so stay tuned for that recommendation. So coming in at my lowest rated book, my least favorite of the month, that was The Man Made of Smoke by Alex North. I did start reading this book in my 24-hour reading vlog, so I'll have that link below if you want to check that out. This was the one audiobook that I listened to, and unfortunately I ended up rating it 2.5 stars. This is the lowest rated book from Alex North that I've had. I've read all his other books before, and I think normally given them like a 4-star, but this one just wasn't really working for me. I don't want to blame it on the fact that I listened to the audiobook. I rarely listen to audiobooks, so I don't know, maybe that had an impact, but I really do just think it was his weakest book so far. In this book, we are following a man whose dad has recently passed away or gone missing. He's kind of just presumed dead. So he goes back to his hometown, which is on this island. It's giving very kind of small town, spooky island vibes, and it's just seeming like a little bit suspicious to him. He's suspicious of his dad's disappearance. And something about this guy, our main character, is that he actually had an encounter with a serial killer when he was a child. The serial killer has since passed, but it's just looking like, maybe the current events going on in present day are connected to the past, and we're just really exploring the serial killer and how he potentially connects to the present day mysteries, missing people that we have going on. A lot of factors in this book are similar to Alex North's other books, but I think for this one, the twist, you could say, the reveals that happened at the end just didn't really impress me. So if I'm reading something that is quite similar to his other books and then the twists are not interesting, nothing to make it kind of unique or stand out, I mean, I just have to rate it lowly. Yeah, so I overall would not recommend this book, unfortunately. Next up, I read Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. You would have seen me read this in my horror reading vlog I uploaded this month, where I specifically read horror books from my boyfriend's bookshelf. So go check that vlog out if you haven't already. I also watched the movie adaptation of this and kind of gave my thoughts on that a little bit. This is the one book that technically is rated young adult, and I see why. I mean, it is following young adult characters and the writing is a little bit amateur in my opinion. It's about this girl who moves to this small town with her dad after the loss of her mother. She gets involved with these teenagers in the town, her peers, that are all pretty rebellious. They're known for doing pranks around the town, kind of causing some havoc, and the adults in this town are really not having it. They're really upset. Anyways, this killer clown ends up going around on, I think it's Halloween night or some night. Maybe it's not Halloween, but it's a slasher book where the killer clown's killing people. You're trying to figure out why. Our main characters are obviously trying to survive. As I said, I did not think the writing in this book was very good, at least not at the beginning part. It didn't really feel very realistic to teenagers. I think the writing was better as the slashering horror parts went on, so I guess Adam just kind of is better at writing that stuff. I really didn't like the motive behind the killer clown. I feel like it didn't really make sense. I didn't really like it. And I just didn't really like how a lot of the book went. I wish it would have been different, but hey, I've never really been that into slashers as books. I think slasher movies are a little bit more interesting. I really don't think slasher books work for me. So I did rate this one 3 stars because it was still somewhat entertaining. Another book I read in that horror reading blog is The Haar by David Sodergren. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. This is another horror, obviously. Look at this cover. This one's quite interesting, a little bit unique, I thought. It is about this small town, small island, whatever, I think in Scotland, and basically this really rich American guy is buying up all this property to build a golf course, and there are a few residents, older residents, who are not willing to give up and sell out to him. One of them being our main character, Muriel. So we're really following her as she fights against these people really pressuring her and being violent towards her, so she'll sell her property. And then she ends up finding something on the beach, and that really changes everything. I don't want to reveal too much, but I kind of like this line at the end of the back here. It says, "Romantic and deranged, the Haar is gore-soaked folk horror fairy tale." So that kind of gives you a little bit of information. It is kind of romantic. It is gory, but nothing, I don't know. I mean, some of the scenes were kind of crazy, but I feel like if you go in expecting that, it's never quite as hoary or graphic as you kind of think is going to be. Yeah, I just think this was an interesting book. I would recommend it if you want a gory kind of creature book. I just don't think this book is like my personal taste per se, but I am glad I read it. And then closing off the review of the books I read in that horror vlog, we have Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. So this was my favorite of the 3. I did also rate it 3.5 stars. Grady Hendrix is probably one of my favorite horror authors. I don't read a ton of horror, but I've consistently read his books and quite enjoyed them. This one is cool because it takes place in this retail store similar to IKEA, as you can kind of tell from the title or the cover page. It's designed kind of like an IKEA catalog. So there's this main girl. She's been working there for years, kind of in a rut with her life, and she ends up being asked to stay overnight at the store because some of the workers are going to investigate some of the weird things that are going on at the store. It's kind of like a haunted store story. So this one was really fun, getting to know all the different characters that work at this retail store, seeing the different relationships between them. And then it gets really, really spooky. I quite enjoyed the horror elements in this book. It definitely grossed me out. It definitely scared me a bit. What really didn't sit well with me was the ending. I feel like Grady could have done a better job wrapping up the story with the ending. So that's why I rated it 3.5, like a little lower than I might have if I just felt like the ending really was great. But I still, again, would overall recommend it, especially to read in October around the Halloween time. I just think it's totally the vibe. And if you haven't checked out Grady Hendrix at all, you really should pick up some of his books. The most recent book I finished was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. I read another book from this author last year, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I know a lot of people read that book and loved it. I really liked it as well. This one I did like slightly less. I also ended up rating it 3.5 stars. This is about a main character, Sarah, who is a witch. Now, I thought this would take place in the same world as The Irregular Witches. It doesn't. It still overall is a similar book in terms of it's about witches, it's a cozy vibe, but the magic system and like the world of witches is a bit different in this book. So Sarah, when she was younger, like was one of those powerful witches that existed in the guild in the UK where these books are set. When her great aunt, who she was really close with, it was like her guardian, when her great aunt passes away, she actually uses like up all her power to bring her aunt back to life, and this kind of causes her to lose her abilities. And I think because it's illegal to bring someone back to life, she also gets exiled from like the witch society. So now now she is just staying at her great aunt's inn, helping to run the inn. And there's this cute little spell that when she had magic was cast on the inn, where like only people who really need the inn and have like good intentions can find it. So over the years, there's a bunch of kind of kooky, fun characters that have stumbled across the inn and have kind of end up just living there. So it's very much a found family vibe. And then the main plot of this book is Sarah finally trying to get her magic back with the help of like a talking fox and this grumpy kind of man that comes in and is her love interest. Similar to the Irregular Witches, it's just really cozy, fun, still witchy and magical, but really is focused on that found family aspect, the kind of the character development of our main character. For some reason, I just found myself like dreading to pick this one up. Not to the point of like hating it, but I was just kind of like, oh, like I wasn't super excited to pick it up. So because of that, I rated it a little bit lower again, but I would overall recommend it again, especially if you like a cozy fantasy. I just kind of wish the romance could have been better. I don't know if I'm loving how she's doing the romances in these books, maybe because it's not like as focused on the romance as it is on like the other elements. I don't know. Something didn't quite work perfectly for me with this, but if you read it, let me know what you thought. All right, then I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. She's probably one of my favorite authors, honestly. This is her release from last year that I didn't get to because I was hearing such mixed reviews, kind of negative reviews, and the book did sound quite weird. I couldn't totally wrap my head around what it even was about, just based on like other people's descriptions and like reading the synopsis. But I finally did decide to read it and I gave it 3.5 stars. That's a very popular rating for me this month, apparently. So overall, I did like it, but I totally see why it would not work for a lot of people and why they would give it some negative reviews. I feel like you would either love or hate this book. It's about our main character who has grown up in this small town in Louisiana, and it's very, very religious. It's feeling very like old-timey. Like, I hope many places are not still like this now. She grew up very sheltered as like the daughter of the reverend or whatever, and we're having flashbacks to when she was younger and this kind of traumatic thing happened to her, and she ended up befriending this boy named Everett, who was also kind of like an outcast in the town, similar to her. So we're having these flashbacks of their friendship over the years during like the summers. Present day, our main character is now, I think, 20 something. These skulls or like dead bodies are being found in this swamp, and so the town is like terrified because they're like, oh my god, there's like a serial killer in this town. So we're kind of unraveling the mystery of that, of who are these dead bodies that have been found in the swamp. Are our main characters involved in this? What do they know? They're trying to figure everything out. Also just trying to kind of escape this really terrible place. This book, as with some of Ashley's other books, it's really upsetting. Like, it's really an upsetting book to read, with just kind of the setup of this town, how these evil men are the ones in control. The women are really powerless. Our main characters are powerless. It's one of those books that's, yeah, going to be really upsetting, dealing with a lot of religious trauma and terrible stuff going on. And it's also quite weird. Our main character, because she's been so sheltered with this religious trauma and stuff, she ends up loving the book Twilight. She ends up getting her hands on it, even though it's like a banned book. She just loves the book. It gets her through. She loves the idea of this love story and Edward. I feel like as a Twilight fan, you can kind of get some entertainment from that, maybe connect with it. It also is a little bit funny and weird with that. It's a bit like you're constantly wondering, like, is there actually a supernatural element in this book? Is there actually vampires or some other supernatural thing going on? So that's why it's a really kind of weird genre bending book. Overall, I did like it, but yeah, the ending, I don't know. I ended on 3.5 stars. Clearly, I'm kind of in the middle of the road on this one, but there's a little description for you. All right, then we had a 4-star read, and that was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. So I actually started this book a couple months ago when I was doing that vlog where I was trying to find a 5-star read. I always had thought I would give this one 5 stars based on the description people had about the main couple in this book, that they were slow burn, that they had good banter and all of this. I was like, I'm gonna love that. Unfortunately, I was not vibing with the writing back then, and so I didn't end up finishing it for that video. But throughout the next couple months, I have been working away at the book whenever I've had time, and so I did finally finish it this month. Clearly I gave it 4 stars, so I still did quite like it. It is a historical kind of mystery book, and this is the first in quite a large series. So our main character, Veronica Speedwell, ends up having some people going after her when her aunts have passed away. Suddenly she kind of has to go on the run because it seems like people are trying to kill her or kidnap her or something. Her whole past is kind of a mystery, so she's trying to figure out like what has gone on with her past because she was just raised by her aunts, right? So she ends up teaming up with this guy named Stoker. They are both scientists, like studying natural history and stuff. So they bond over that, and they're both kind of trying to solve the mystery because then this other person ends up dead that they both knew, and so they're trying to kind of clear their own names and figure out like who killed them and how is Veronica involved. So it's giving a cozy mystery. It takes place in like the UK, obviously. Yeah, the dynamic between the couple is really cute, and it is a really huge focus of this book. Like, so much of this book is dialogue, I feel, especially between the main two. But as I was alluding to before, there was something really off about the writing for some reason. Like, it took a lot of concentration. It was not an easy read for me, just with the way that it was written. So I might still continue this series because I do like the dynamic between Veronica and Stoker, but I almost feel like it could be even like a slower burn. Like, I kind of feel like even after the first book, there is just so much attraction there that I'm like, I can't see them not getting together soon, but we'll see. Anyways, I know this is a pretty popular series. Glad that I at least read the first book. Then we have another Ashley Winstead. This book will bury me. This was her release from this year, 2025, and it is a thriller mystery book. In this one, we have a main character whose father's passed away, and she's having a really hard time with it. She ends up joining some online communities of like armchair sleuths, I think they're called, or armchair detectives, online sleuths, whatever, which is basically these forums online where you try to solve these cases. Now, I'm not someone who's personally super involved in like following true crime or anything in real life, so it was interesting for me to read about this kind of perspective that I don't know a ton about. Basically, our main character is telling the story in an interesting way. She's speaking directly to us as the readers. It's supposed to be her like tell-all story about what happened and this dramatic event that happened with this one case. So I definitely found that intriguing, entertaining narrative, and was really interested to see like what ends up happening. There is some controversy surrounding this book. I ended up finding out because she does take a lot of details from some real life cases, which I know a lot of people have found upsetting, and I definitely understand why. My biggest issue with this book was probably the fact that I guessed the killer really early on. I feel like it was really obvious and most people would have guessed it. And I just feel like in a thriller mystery, I of course don't want to figure out who the killer is until much later, like maybe the third act or something like that, or at least not be so confident that I'm right. That being said, I still enjoy Ashley Winstead's writing so much. As I said earlier, I think she is one of my favorite authors. I did overall enjoy this book. This also had some found family vibes. I think how the discussions around grief with her father were interesting. This was actually a book I read in that 24-hour reading vlog, if you do want to see my in real-time thoughts, but I was able to read this book in a full day, so I found it easy to pick up and just keep reading. I definitely was intrigued, but it is a bit of a longer book. Her books, I don't remember if her first couple books were this long, but these books I read this month were quite long, so just be aware of that if you want to pick them up. But yeah, I did like this one. And then finally, my 5-star read for the month is an author we've already seen before. That's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I was not expecting to give this one 5 stars. Honestly, I was kind of putting off reading it throughout this year. It was released earlier this year, I think, because I thought I had heard some mixed things, but no, this was a great book. This was a really great book. It is basically about, and this is a true thing from history, these homes for unwed mothers, I think they were called, which is something I've not heard a lot about. I don't think there's been a ton of stories or like media coverage on this, but basically back before Wade versus Roe happened and when abortions were allowed, any women who are unwed, especially like underage girls and stuff, would be sent to these homes to just kind of go through their whole pregnancy in hiding, hidden away because it was so shameful what they've done, forced to give their babies away. Like, they were not given any options. They had to put their baby up for adoption and then go on throughout their life as if nothing had ever happened. So that is kind of the main horror of this book. It's really based on the true horror that these women had to go through. So of course we have a main character who we're seeing this from. She's like 15, I think, and she ends up going to this home. We're really seeing her relationship with these other girls and what she has to go through. They have no control over their bodies. Their doctors and people at the home are telling them what they can eat, what they can do. They're being forced to give up their children, even if they would like to keep their children. It's really upsetting. Highly recommend reading it for those aspects. But then the girls end up stumbling across this book of witchcraft and end up dabbling into witchcraft, and it's kind of their waitress are taking their power back. And so that is the other kind of horror aspect, the supernatural aspect of the book. A lot of people have talked about how there wasn't enough of the paranormal witchy stuff. I totally see what people mean, but I do think it was enough. Another aspect some people said was that it was kind of boring and long. That wasn't really a huge issue for me. I think that just allowed me to get more and more connected to these characters and more invested in the girls. This was also a little bit triggering for me. If you are triggered by like birth scenes, pregnancy, that kind of stuff, definitely be warned. After reading this one really intense scene, I actually felt quite faint, like I was going to pass out. I don't know if it was because of the book or something else, but that was a reaction that my body had. So just be warned. But I feel like, you know, I just overall enjoyed this book so much. Clearly I was really impacted by it physically as well. So yeah, I just overall really would recommend this book. If it does sound like something that would be interesting to you, of course, it's not going to be for everyone. But for some reason, when Grady Hendrix writes these these stories about women, it's great. Like, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires also is 5 stars from me. I know he's a cis white man, but he's doing a good job. In the author's note, you do see he has a personal connection to the Home for Unwed Mothers. So that is probably one of the reasons this book was so well done. He did put a lot of research in it and everything. So that is my wrap up for October. I feel pretty happy about the books I read, the mix of horror and thriller and a cozy witchy book in there. Let me know how your October reading went. And of course, if you've read any of these books as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you will subscribe and like and comment down below. And I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye!